All right, morning. Thaw it out. Yeah, it's a brisk one this morning. Um, well, we're winding down here on the preparation. It's been a quick week, but um, you know, tough team to prepare for. Got a lot of work to do, but we're kind of closing in on it here. Get to Friday type schedule today, and um, get through our preparations and be ready to go here. So um, looking forward to it. Good challenge, great opportunity. Buffalo's a good football team. We know we'll need to play our best game to win. So that's what we're going to try to do.
Raise your hand if you have questions. I'll call on you. Mike Reese?
In the stadium practice today, how much of that is just a practice where you're going to be playing, or is it more field condition related?
Yeah, probably the latter.
Bill Perry?
You mentioned the weather off the top. Just walking in, it's that wind out there, and combined with the cold. I'm just curious. This is sort of a broader kind of question, I guess. But as you're looking for players to add to your team, does how they might perform in these kinds of conditions come into play ever? Not these specific, but Northeast New England.
Yeah. I don't know that wouldn't say it's a priority. I mean, but look, it's a factor. You got to deal with it at the end of the year. So, but sometimes it's good if they've had experience in it. But we've had plenty that haven't. And the Gerard Mayos of the world and all, and they've played a lot of great football for us. So.
Questions? Bob Sosa?
Bill, what have you noticed in the way Brian Daboll's used their tight ends during the course of the season, and then in the Pittsburgh game in particular? Bob catches the ball, hadn't been involved a lot production-wise, but catches a key touchdown for them in that game. And he faced a number of teams with multiple tight ends look alike. Just curious how Buffalo stacks up and how they use those guys.
Yeah, well, earlier in the year they didn't have Croft, so it was Smith, then Knox, a little bit of Sweeney. Then, kind of as Knox started to, I would say, come on a little bit, there were several weeks there where Smith didn't play much. They all played, but the playing time went from Smith to Knox. They were in a lot of 11 personnel, bunch of no huddle for several games, 3 or 4 games there. And then, as you mentioned, the Pittsburgh game swung a little bit more back to what they did in some earlier games. So I think, with Buffalo, you just got to be ready for all the different personnel groups. They have them all, which ones they're going to use against you and at what level of frequency. We'll just have to see. Some of that's probably game plan related. Other part of it might be game related, so we'll just have to see. But they've all played. When Croft came back, he played more in the first 2 or 3 games, whatever it was, when he got back. And then kind of Knox seems like he's taken back some of that playing time. And as you said, Smith played more last week. So I have to ask Brian how he's going to use him. And Sweeney's kind of dropped out, where he played more earlier, some earlier. He's kind of dropped out, but he's still on the roster. So, we'll see.
Larry McKenna?
Bill, Tom Brady's completion percentage is down at 60.1, which is the lowest it's been for his career. He's a guy that, we talked about how accurate he's been. So I guess sort of surprising number. What's gone into that this year?
Yeah, I think right now, we're really focused on the Buffalo game and, trying to get ready and, play our best in this game. So, going back and analyzing stuff from other games and a year and all that, it's really not where we're at.
Is there maybe an emphasis to try and bring that number up, or is it sort of is what it is this year? Or?
No, we call passes to complete them. We call runs to gain yardage. We call defenses to stop our opponents. We call returns to gain yardage on the return. So that's why we call those plays. So we want to all of them as good as we can, be as productive as we can. try to make every play productive.
And Ryan?
Bill, I know it's a time of the season, everyone's dealing with something. Julian Edelman's a player who's been on the injury report, it seems like basically a lot of the season, right now with the shoulder and the knee. Given how important he is to the offense and how important this game is, how do you balance just his work and practice and how you use him in a game when you know he's clearly dealing with something, but again, he's so important to the offense?
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, the injury report, I mean, it is what it is. We follow the injury report rules as we're required to do, and that's what we do. So whatever that is, it is. Now, there's a lot of variation in what that can be based on what the rules are. So, but, you know, for each individual player, as you said, nobody's 100%. Everybody's played a lot of football, practiced a lot of football, and, you know, it's been basically week after week other than, you know, the one bye week. So, you know, that's a cumulative thing, and we do the best we can each week to manage all the things that you just talked about, each individual player's situation, what the team needs, what type of practice schedule or what type of preparation we're on, and how to get the most out of the team and the players, and to be ready to go on Sunday. So it's, you know, it's really an individual daily answer to that question. What's the player's situation? What are we working on? What's his role? What do we need him for? You know, can he do it? I mean, if he can't do it, then that answers that. If he can do some things but not others, then how important is it for him to do those things? Can we get him the next day? Can we not get him the next day? So forth. So we just take that on a day-by-day basis, and that's really what the position coaches, one of the main things that they do is manage the players at their position. So between, you know, Jacoby and Akil and, you know, Julian and Sanu, Phil and Joe manages those guys based on the, you know, all the things I just talked about. Or Ivan does it with the run backs, or Nick does it with the tight ends, or Dante does it with the line, and sometimes they add up, and sometimes they're kind of independently. You know, you have to do what's best for your group.
I know you focus on the game for the week, but just knowing what is ahead at any given point of the season?
Sure. Yeah, sure, it could be. Definitely. Again, at this point, you're kind of in a lot of one-game seasons. So, but, yeah, but there's a game after this, and we're fortunate we have at least one more game after that. And so last week we had, you know, but as they're getting fewer and fewer, then, you know, I'd say there's fewer options. And, you know, again, you have to try to figure out what's best for that player, what's best for the team, and so forth. So but it's a normal problem with every position. It's not one player. Oh, this year it was just this player. Every year it's multiple players throughout the entire course of the year, and every team goes through it that I know of. So you just do the best you can to manage it, and you stay in constant communication with the player, the people who are training him and working on him, and again, the coaches that are involved in his utilization, whether it's on offense, defense, special teams, whatever those combinations are. Do the best you can.
Mark Daniels?
The Bills obviously were playing good defense back in week 4 when we first saw them. Have you seen, I want to say, an evolution from that group? Are there any differences in that defensive unit going into this week now compared to week 4?
No, not really. So, I mean, I think it's rare. I mean, they've virtually had no injuries. I mean, it's the exact same, you know, sort of the same players. I mean, Oliver's obviously gained a lot of experience, and he's a good player. But it's really pretty much the same group. They've been very healthy. They've missed very little time. Their rotations are pretty solid and consistent because they've had, you know, all those guys available. So, you know, Sean's scheme is Sean's scheme. He has a broad scheme. He has a lot of, you know, variations and change-ups, but they complement each other. It's not, you know, it's not a big, I mean, the volume's not exorbitant, but it's enough to keep the offense off balance so that you can do enough different things to change up and play man, play zone, play blitz zone, bring 2, bring 3, or bring 1, bring 2, drop 1. So, you know, you just you just don't know exactly what you're going to get schematically. And they do a very good job of disguising what they do so that they look the same, but they're not the same. And they combine that with some defensive line movement and obviously some very good players. And so that's why they're good. They're well coached. They have good players. They're sound. They don't give up big plays. And it's hard to string a lot of good plays together against that defense. You might, move the ball a little bit, but, if you have to put together, 10, 12 play drive, usually they can make plays along the way before you can finish the drive, and they're out of there.
3 final questions. I got Doug Kite.
After Sunday's game, some guys mentioned that J.C. Jackson had played wide receiver on the scout team last year, and then over the summer we kind of found out that Danny Etling had some receiver role on the scout team last year. Is that all purely need-based, moving guys around on the scout team, or do you ever take a look at that as an opportunity if an emergency comes up?
I'd say it's usually need-based. Sometimes it becomes more than that, but I'd say usually it's need-based. I mean, guys have their primary position, and if they can work at that position, then great. And sometimes they don't get much work at their position, or you need them at another position, and so you have to, all hands on deck, and you have to pool all your resources there and try to. Everybody has to do a little bit more, and so in the end, I think it helps those players. I mean, it helps a defensive back to play corner, it helps a wide receiver or a quarterback to play wide receiver to see what it's like on the other end of the pass, and offensive linemen to play defensive linemen, and vice versa at times when you're shorthanded. So I don't think those are like bad experiences for the individual players. Sometimes the quality initially is not that good, but it's a learning curve, and then they get better at it. And, sometimes with a player like Edelman or Troy Brown, you end up need to use them, even though that's not your first choice. So, but yeah, I'd say it's more need based, unless you had a specific player that his role is going to be, all 3 phases and can do a lot of different things, and that was the type of player. But there's not many of those.
Bob Sisson.
Bill, Hyde and Boyer are both guys who made plays in the season series against the Pats the last few years. What are the things that you see, though, when you watch their defense that kind of indicate their value to their team and what Sean and Leslie are trying to execute defensively?
Yeah, again, I think I've said this for several years. They complement each other very well. They do a very good job with their disguise and pre-snap looks. They make it hard on the quarterback. Mostly as a coach or quarterback, if you look at the safeties, that'll pretty much tell you, 80% of what's going on defensively based on their depth or their rotation, your formation, obviously, and then where they go in that formation, and then how deep they are, and what kind of angle they're taking. So I would say those guys do a good job of holding that until the last second. Sometimes they get false keys and start one way and go another way, so that as a quarterback, you want to, or as a coach even, if you're looking at the game, you see something and you think that's what it is, and your eyes go somewhere else, but then it starts one way and then it goes somewhere else, and then you've misread it. So they do a good job of those things, whether they're blitzing, playing man coverage, playing different zone coverages and different responsibilities in the zones. They're both instinctive players. Sometimes they kind of don't go exactly probably where they're supposed to go, but there's a certain key or indicator, or they recognize the play and don't really get to where they're supposed to get to because the play's developed quickly. And so that's, you think they're going to be one place, but they recognize it, and they're quicker than you think they're going to be, and are in the way of the play. So they do all those things well, and they do it well with the linebackers. They tie the disguises in with the linebackers as well too. Sometimes if safety's disguised and the linebackers aren't tied in with it, like you got all these guys over here together, well, they're not. Somebody's going to have to go somewhere else. So it's not okay. They're trying to disguise it. We can see they're trying to disguise it, but these guys, they move one way, the linebackers move the other way. They, kind of control their disguises. They do a good job. And they're fast. Milano's fast, Edmonds is fast. So even though the linebackers, they have the speed and, I would say, range to get the things that some of the linebackers can't get to. So that's, it all ties in together well.
Stefan Gilmore said the other day this is like a playoff game, and I'm just curious from what you've seen from the players and your staff throughout the organization, are you sensing that urgency of a playoff game?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for. Yep, you work all year to put yourself in a position of, playing a game like this where you can win the division. So that's, couldn't say that in week 4 or week 6 or week 8, whatever it was. Well, we're saying that now, so now's the time for us to play and coach our best football. That's what we're all here for.
Coach, thanks everyone.
Okay, yep, thank you.